I have a few questions prepared, but for those that don't know you, I've known your name, your wife Hilda. You're both absolutely independently brilliant together. You provide firepower beyond anything. It's hard to imagine you have such a beautiful family, but yet you have such a beautiful combination of business skills. And when I first heard about Zinzino was when you guys first started. I was working in Europe. I lived in Holland 20 years ago. I spent a lot of time in Scandinavia. So your name came up a lot. You were in the field in a nutrition company.
You took all my people back in the day.
Well, you took them back because many of your presidents and even, elite presidents were downline of mine that didn't even do well with me. But when they got with you, you helped them to become hugely successful. But when I heard you started, it was a coffee company. So when I was looking around, Zinzino's name, was on my radar because you transitioned to health and wellness. And when I first met you, in person, and, we talked about why you did what you did. How did you discover the balanced soil in the test? And what just again, it all starts with our personal story, right? We try a product, we see that has got to be the part that starts it. You told me, as much as it's the company and the marketing plan already in timing, if you don't have a great product, you're not going anywhere long term. So let's start there.
Well, I got introduced to the founders of the company that we acquired, that was Bioactive Foods, and I was invited there as an investor. And my background is that I've been taking omega-3 supplements since I was 7 years old. Started selling it when I was 17. Quit selling it by the time I was 28 because I didn't see that nutritional supplement gave those fundamental results that we were all bragging about them giving. And that was after having hundreds of thousands of people trying out products. I was disappointed. Now, when I came to the meeting, I was 37 years old. And I was living on a specialized diet because I had some very severe gut issues. So I was eating only basically fish 1 to 2 times a day, a little bit of long cooked meats, once in a while some meat. So a little bit typical like carnivore style of diet is one way to describe it. I did have some salad. I actually ate potatoes. Because that was the only thing that didn't give me pain. That was why I was eating potatoes. I had to have something which didn't hurt when I ate it. The potatoes I could have pain-free. And then long-cooked vegetables, because if they were raw, they gave me too much pain. And then the only supplement that I took at the time was omega-3s, because all the supplements that I used to take through my life actually gave me pain. So my favorite protein shake had to go because it gave me pain, more pain than what was durable. I needed painkiller if I was going to take it. There is no point in taking a nutritional supplement to take painkillers afterwards. No, regular food gave that to me as well. And that was my health status and mental status when I came to the meeting. They talked a good story about omega-3s. They explained to me how the olive polyphenols were a better antioxidant than what was tried before. But I didn't really have the interest in trying out the product because I thought I took all the omega-3s I needed. And this was the point where they, at the end, said, well, we've got a testing device that can tell you if your diet is pro-inflammatory, so it's making your operational system in your body prone to inflammation. So it doesn't say that you have inflammation, but it says that what you're eating could very easily lead to excessive inflammation. So that's what pro-inflammatory means, so that people don't confuse it with a medical term of inflammation. Or if it's semi-inflammatory, or if it's anti-inflammatory, meaning that what you eat could help the body lower its activation of the inflammatory system. So that was what they explained. We've got a test that can measure that. And that was my moment where I said, ching, ching. I didn't say I think I would be healthy. I didn't think it would do anything for me. But I just said, if I have a product that can prove that all the other omega-3s in the world doesn't work, and ours does work, I can sell a lot of that with a before and after test. And I was thinking telecoms, because I spent 18 years in telecoms, make the test somewhat free, and then bind it to a subscription and give them the second test for free. And that was like instant, like the sales method was there in my head when I was sitting in a meeting without telling them, of course. Then I came home, took the test. I failed the test terribly, 10.4 to 1 instead of 3 to 1, which is the ideal balance. And then 4 months later, I passed the test, 1.7 to 1, and I was eating every food that I wanted. Unfortunately, sweets, candies, and I enjoyed wine and coffee and all the other things. Again, I must admit, I'm not a saint. I'm trying to cut back as much as I can, but you know, I could live life again to the fullest. So that was my biggest motivation to cast the vision for bringing the world back into balance. And then Natalie did mention the study that was released on the 9th of August. And for 13 years now, 13 years now, people have said, well, if you have such a fantastic product, why don't you have like studies that proves everything that you're talking about and so on? Well, we played the long game in this. We could have gone out and we could have done like 100 people, 200, 500, even 1,000 people in a study is impressive, you know. But we waited until we had 500,000 samples with over 100 countries participating in the study. And this is the first release, which includes the most factual database, the most factual data, the most factual study of the balance of omega-6 to omega-3 in the global community. We're not talking about 27 people in Mississippi. We're not talking about selecting, like sometimes when people do study, you go like on a hunt to find the right people to study so that you can get Stuart is laughing because he knows about this. You're hunting them down so that you get a great result. No, this is randomized 500,000+ people in over 100 countries without having no ability to select any one of those. And remember, this is still just a third of our database that is released because there are 2 more studies to come to build up on the first one. But it unequivocally proves 2 things. The world does not have the sufficient level of omega-3. It absolutely doesn't have the balance between omega-6 to omega-3. The AA to the EPA, absolutely not. No country even comes close on that one. And normal supplementation does absolutely not solve the problem. And we published, and it's a 500,000 people data sample. Stuart, 500,000. That's like, and it's in PubMed already. I do think we will get a lot of attention on it. Not in the mass media because it doesn't have a sexy conclusion where it proves that you live longer or something like that. That takes even more years. But there was a study this spring in Switzerland that actually proved that a better ratio of omega-6 to omega-3 do add years to your life. So that's actually, but much smaller sample and done in an elderly home. So they probably hunted down for the right people to test. I don't know. But the next one coming, which includes another 500,000, so now we're up to 1 million people in that study, will show the difference between omega-3 supplement, balance oil, and all the other omega-3 supplement.
Wow.
So that's the next publication, 3, 4, 5, 6 months out there. It's getting ready for peer review. And since we will be probably the most cited study in omega-3 going forward, because this study that we launched will be cited by anybody else that does a study in the future, because where else do you have a 500,000 people database?
Right.
When we launched the balance oil study, they'd have to cite that one too. So every omega-3 publication in the future will include our work. That's
well, Orion, you went right to my second question. I wanted to really have you talk about why this such a landmark study. You mentioned Stuart Tomc. The science of Zinzino has attracted incredible people to our team and to the company. And Stuart Tomc, being the former global educator for Nordic Naturals, the largest selling fish oil, he calls himself brand agnostic. He's brought on Dr. Michael Lewis, Dr. Michael Garko, and there's many, many others here. Many are coming to visit us next week. So I wanted to really separate our talk into two pieces. I want one more talk about the science and the futures in xenoscience, and then we'll talk business, okay? Because we have new people evaluating our opportunity. We have partners that are still getting familiar with our opportunity. But we had Dr. Clayton on 2 weeks ago, and we had a great interview with him. And we talked about how Zinzino has been the leader in test-based nutrition, how we have a balance test. We also have a vitamin D test. And I've learned how important that is. And then HB1EC test, which, again, the whole world should be testing for that, all three of these. But now we're looking at coming out with our own test, not one that we acquired, but developed internally, he said, is a gut health test that, it's not brand new news to most of the partners that we've been buzzing about it. We're hoping and expecting possibly at our Oslo International coming up in October that we might get more information and potentially launch this test. But can you tell us about the R&D that's gone into this and what really is gut health, and why would this test, again, separate Zinzino from the masses in science, or in at least health and wellness in MLM? People always ask me, okay, every company has a great product. Why Zinzino?
And let me touch on that last part of your question first. Because
okay.
The most important test you do will always be this one. Because it tells how effective any product you take will become after you get in balance. So what this tests is your membranes okay? If you have too much omega-6, too little omega-3, your membranes, your cell membranes are not okay. Doesn't matter if it's the skin, the eye, if it's inside of your ear, your muscle, or if it's an inner organ. It doesn't matter where it is. If the membranes aren't okay, anything you eat, anything you supplement with, anything you drink, anything you breathe, anything that is going to go through that membrane will have a struggle. And there is two such membranes. It's the cell membrane and the mitochondrial membrane. So when you get in balance, what it means is that those membranes are okay. So that's the function mechanism of the product and what we test right here. And that's brilliant. Now, there is a lot of direct effects of omega-3, direct effects of polyphenols, direct effects of the formulation. But the biggest part is the synergetic effect when everything your cell needs is inside of your cell at the same time. And that only happens easily if your membranes are okay. Now, that's the first step to health. The second step to health in our health protocol is to look at everything that is not you. So I read a book many years ago. It's called 10% Human. And I love it. I like, what is this 10% human? And I had to pick it up. And I was on this dig into gut health. And it's about 12 years, 13 years ago, after I came across the balance oil, I said, what more is there? Well, I found out that there is species living on my skin and living in my gut that is 9 times more than me, that is called bacteria. And those bacteria, they don't share your DNA, and they live off you, and they live off the food that you eat. And there are, I would, like it's easy to say that there is good ones and bad ones, and some of them are bad. They can kill you. We know that. So you should be careful with bacteria. But it's actually more like there is ones that have functions of building you up, which means that they produce nutrients for you. And then there is ones that have the function of breaking things down, which means that they take care of your waste. Now, if you have a lot more of the breaking down kind than the building up kind, you're not getting the nutrients that you need, and they start breaking down things that they shouldn't be breaking down. And the first part of that happens in your gut. So they break down the mucosa, and you have a leaky gut. And if you have a leaky gut, you will have an autoimmune disorder at one point. There is no way to avoid it. So that's just the science part of that. And then you can go and do a stool sample to measure which bacteria you have. Not that fun at home parties, I would say. Horrible. At the doctor's office, that's completely clean and normal and no problems with that at all. But we asked the question, how could we, instead of looking at the waste of your factory, look at what your factory is producing, which will be what bacteria are doing in your blood. And we thought it was easy. 3 weeks later, we had an idea. The year was 2014, and no, 2017, I think it was 2017 to be correct. And we thought, we've got the gut health test of the world, and we will revolutionize gut health. Then that didn't work out. And then 2018, we thought we were there, and 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023. And then they said, we think we have sold it. And I said, I don't know if I'm going to believe you one more time to be enthusiastic. But what we are launching at our convention is revolutionary, because it will tell you the answer to the following. And I'm going to now give you a tagline that they will kill me, that they'll probably kill me at marketing, when I use the following line. But is your food turning into fuel or into inflammation? That's what we will answer to you that task. In the future, we believe that we could answer, is your body a fat-burning, muscle-building machine, or just not working the way you're supposed to be? We think that that's the next step inside of measuring the gut health, and that we could maybe 1 to 2 years with extensive research give answer to that as well. But this is revolutionary because it gives an answer that no one has had before, easily accessible, and we can bring it throughout the globe. And I'm very excited about that. And then I have so many other things in science I'm excited about too. Like what I haven't told Artie yet. Maybe I'll tell him on Monday in the Leader Council. But we have some really cool things coming up. Our pipeline for next 3, 4, 5 years is like completely full with revolutionary product ingredients, test technologies, and other technologies to be coming through the Zinzino pipeline. So we will be easily going to 100 million customers.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned that, because Zinzino, from what I've already witnessed, doesn't sit back on what they did yesterday, whether it's the business side of it, advancing systems, our technology, our tools, acquiring companies. And you said that you also had, in one of our leaders' calls, you mentioned you have a next generation balance oil that could have as many as 4 patents on it. Is that true? Did I hear that right?
think we filed 2 more on Friday, so I think we're up to maybe 6 or 8 now. If we take production method and actual products, we actually have 2 product patents on the new version of the oil that was filed. Not filed to patenting, but filed for testing at the lab that will file the patenting later on in the process.
Now, Orion, on this subject, we both have been around direct selling for several decades. Most of our professional life is all direct selling. And you built the stage that myself, Larry, and Miriam, and all these leaders are coming to now to dance on with you, not just because of what you did yesterday, but yes, partially you proved it. You're not a startup anymore. Yes, where we've gone in just a year and a half.
We are the company in the world with the biggest omega-3 published study ever. We're not a startup. We're the leader. At this point, we're the leader. So I'll let you finish the question, okay?
Yeah, well,
I say that a few thousand times because I've been waiting for so many years to say that.
Well, that's exciting. And I think everyone here, if they haven't read it, they're going to dig into it. I know it's very sciencey, but there's also, there's some logical reading for everybody. A layperson can digest a lot from that as well. But when I look at where we are right now, and I hear from others in other direct selling opportunities that are telling me about their story, I'm thinking they're missing the point. Zinzino is different. What would you say to new prospects, because we have new people watching this, or new partners? Because if they haven't heard it, they're going to hear about other companies in direct selling. And, it's not that somebody may not have good products, but Larry and I talked about it. If they are good, how do you know? And how do you know you've been taking them? So, again, what do you think really separates us from all the other companies in direct selling in our space? What would it be?
So that's a multiple layer question.
It is. If you can condense the answer, if just bullet points, what do you say?
I think what I want to say to that is the following, and that is that when you look at a company, there is 5 areas that you got to look at. You got to look at the company's vision. Do they have the vision to take it to a place where we haven't been before? When we cast our vision of 100 million customers and to become the #1 preventative health company in the world, and we said that we will bring the world back into balance, we knew that that was impossible because we knew that there wasn't enough omega-3 supplements available. And especially not total, like if you take the dosage we give here, this year's production of omega-3 will fit for about 65 million people. So we knew that we would then have to go and innovate at a level where we would create the next generation of omega-3s, which we always thought would be algae-based, but we had no idea how much better it was going to be by the time we figured it out than the rest of the people dealing in the algae world. So complete carbon-negative industry, giving the world oxygen at the same time. Like for total, we will be carbon-negative for everything we do. We could include your family, we could include your neighborhood. This is like as carbon-negative as you can be. But not only that, it produces a massive amount of oxygen. So you give life to the humans as you are growing the algae. Then that goes into the next generation of balanced soil. And now when I speak about this, remember, it'll take years to build this up. So it's not done tomorrow. I do use the product myself every day. So it's not fiction anymore. It has all the 5%, 6% phospholipids, more than any other omega in the world. It has more choline than any other omega in the world. And those that doesn't know that, I'm just saying this to those that know what it means. And it has 50-50 split between EPA, DHA at the 50, 60, maybe even 65% load. And it's stable outside of your fridge for 30 days.
Wow.
So it's something that have never been done. Like the stability of the product in itself would win you awards through a lifetime, because this product is stable, like balanced oil is stable in the fridge for 30 to 60 days. But this product is stable at room temperature for 30 days, using it every day outside of the fridge. That's like, it's cold pressed, no heating every well. I could keep on bragging, and I know exactly what we need to do today to build it up to a scale where we can produce more omega-3s than the entire world together. And I think we can do it as soon as we have within 2035 to 2040, we'll actually do it. So it'll go very, very quickly, even though that might sound like a long time for a lot of people. So that's the vision, which leads to developing a product that has a market demand. So there's two types of products, kind of products that we could sell, and then there is kind of products that has a demand in the market because it's so much better than the rest. And I use the example of Netflix, even though it has nothing to do with network marketing or health, but they said, we will not sell to you unless you put in your credit card and get on an out order and you watch what we want you to see. And they've got 265 million subscribers. Then Daniel Ek, which lives 50, 60 miles from where he grew up, from our headquarters in Gothenburg, he started Spotify, and he said, if we can make music easily accessible for everyone, then everyone would want to have Spotify. 690 million people have Spotify today. 690 million in about 20, 25 years. So I believe fundamentally in building test technology that takes all the people that believes in supplements. When they take this test, they know that they need to take omegas. I believe in other technologies that will come in the future, and then building a product and a sourcing of that product that has a demand in the marketplace. So people would say, when I can get that, when you have that available again, just like people were sleeping outside in tents to get iPhones back in the day, I want people sleeping in tents outside of your home, waiting for your next shipment, and that they would want the product from you because we become number one in our category. So that's the products. And I really, truly believe that if we build that, a network marketing company can have 100 million plus customers. Now, need a corporate team that can execute on it. Don't have the time to cover that, but that's light. Right. And then you need to build a culture inside of the company for the distributors that builds leadership and that builds people, not only a check. Because a check doesn't mean anything. It just means that you have a large team. So if you don't have leadership and you haven't built the person, that check will collapse. That will go away again every single time, because you have to have a culture of building leadership and building people. And then number 5, the comp plan is how we share the money. Any comp plan paying out 50% is an amazing comp plan. That's about what we pay out. So it doesn't matter if it's binary, unilevel, hybrid, breakaway. It doesn't matter. It's an amazing comp plan if it pays out that. The question is, how do you pay it out? And if you pay everything on the top, it will boom and bust. And so many people have explained me that, Orjan, your plan isn't good enough to attract the biggest leaders in the world. And I've said, yeah, but what does it help me to get them? And then they leave again 5 years later, and then it busts and they start over. And then people have said, well, if you're going to do all these customer sales, you need to put all the money in the bottom, but show me one bottom heavy company where, like, it used to be one company out there called A1, and maybe also Tupperware. A1 is gone. Tupperware is mostly gone. They disappeared because it didn't give any room for the leadership development and the building the people. So the money needs to be in the middle. That's what we created. And it's an amazing comp plan to create that part-time income to get to $15,000, $20,000 a month to go full-time. Now, if you have built leadership and you've built a person, now they will go and help 4 people do the same. in 4 different lines in the binary, and that will give you access to the 50 or the 60,000. And if you build 5 and 6 and 7 and 8, and you keep on driving that, you know there is no cap in the comp plan. Even though it's a smaller percentage, you keep on making money, and that's amazing. And then your last part of that question was, what about the brand new ones? What do we do? I came off the treadmill here a few hours ago, and I hope that each one of you either owns a pair of walking shoes or a pair of sneakers or a pair of running shoes and even a treadmill, because I do believe that physical exercise is very important. I might, if I ever write a book again, I don't know, I never get time for writing. I talk every year about writing a book and I never do. So I shouldn't. But if I do write a book, I'm gonna, about my hobby, it will be about IQ, EQ, PQ, so positive quotient, EQ, emotional quotient, and I will have a FQ, fitness quotient, in that, because I think as humans being, the fitness or a physical quotient compared to where we can be is very important. So exercise is really important. Now, back to my story. that was like totally on the side. Back to my story. So I came off the treadmill, and I realized that for my own physical health, it's easy not to do what really works. And I like fitness. I like running specifically. And I've always had this idea that I will always run a 5K in 20 minutes. And the truth is that I run it in that time when I was in my teenage years. And then I run it at that time for a week around my 40th birthday. And besides from that, I've not been running at that time. And it irritates me. Like, so it irritates me. And I know a lot about, I could coach all of you on how you will do it. I've read so much about it. And in exercise, we divide exercise into 5 heart zones. So you have zone 1, which is when you start exercising, your pulse is above the threshold of a slow walk. So it's a brisk walk. And then we have zone 2, which is a very beneficial zone where you're above walking, you're walking fast, or you're walking uphill, or you're jogging. And then you have zone 3, which is where it's really exercise, where you feel it, you breathe more heavily, but you can run for a long time, but you break down your body more than you build it up. And then you have zone 4, where you're into the orange zone. You can't run for forever. You burn more oxygen and you build up lactate. And that's the zone which everyone competes in. And it's painful over time. And you got to build your capacity on zone 4 running to be able to do a 5K in 20 minutes. And then you have zone 5, where you only last a few seconds to a few minutes. You're full out running, you're sprinting full out. Now, if you want to be the most famous athlete in the world, you only need to exercise zone 5. And you only need to run for 9 seconds and 39 hundredths. And then you are the most famous athlete on the male side in the world. And if you're a woman, it's 9 seconds and 98 hundredths or something like that. And then you're the fastest woman in the world. And they never have to do anything else than exercise zone 5, because that's all about explosion. They get the most contracts, they get the most money. Then if you drop down into all other sports, anybody at the top of any sport that collects the most money, they have a capacity for zone 4 exercise, and they have a capacity for zone 5 that is better than the rest. So I came off the treadmill and I said, if I just did 2 times a week, zone 4 and zone 5, I'd easily always run a 5K sub 20. Why am I not doing it? And then I wrote it down again, and I just decided that I am committing to that. Now I have to commit to that because it's so logical. So if you're brand new, what is zone 4 and zone 5 in Zinzino? Because that's where you get the most value out of your time. And obviously, that's the most painful activities. So if you don't do them at all, if you never do zone 5, you will nearly never run a sub 20, 5K, depending on your age, of course. If you never touch zone 4, you will just simply never run a 5K sub 20. And if you never touch zone 4 and zone 5 in network marketing, you're just never going to build a big check in Zinzino. So that's the secret. That's the inside secret. Now, Artie already knows what this is. So I could now say, tell me, but I'm going to tell you so that he doesn't have to take up the time on that. But zone 5 is when you personally sponsor your own contacts. So when you enroll somebody into the business personally and work with them, that's zone 5. If you do that once or twice a week, or they come on. If you have somebody that does that once or twice a week, I mean, they will be superstars in such a fast period of time. And zone 4 is when you assist the people you have in your team in enrolling their personal partners. You enroll your personal customers and you assist them in enrolling their personal customers. And if you do a couple of times a day, zone 4 activity in this business, you're going through the moon. Like if you have 2 meetings a day where you help your team enroll new people, you're going to then have 10 enrollees every week on Ultimate Kits. And if that duplicates, it's just going to the moon, you know, it's just going to completely take off for you. And that's my advice. And that's why we built the fast start the way we did over 120 days. So follow that fast start.
Right.
That brings you immediately to zone 5 and zone 4, and you get the activities and you keep on doing that and keep on bringing everyone through that. This business will take off like a rocket ship for you.
Orion, people have called you a visionary before I met you. I agree with them. Larry and I share this same compliment about you. You really are. Well, you had a vision on health and wellness when you saw the balance oil. You became a customer just like I did. I was 12-1. I've been taking omega-3 for 3 years. I dropped to 3.3-1. Now I'm down to 2.2. So I've experienced, felt, and know my health is improved after dealing with a lot of health challenges, which you know privately about. So you have a vision of test-based nutrition. You're making this a reality. You use network marketing, which most people don't understand. They're misinformed and uninformed, as the platform to educate people and get the world into balance. And when I evaluated Zinzino, I appreciated that I could look at the data because you were publicly traded, which can be good and bad, because you're going to see if it's doing well or doing not so well. You can see where their investment is. And so and even earlier this year in our Leaders Council, you said, well, I see possibly the stock going to here and here. But when I joined 16 months ago and was looking at it, it was about $7 US. It hit a high of like 30 recently. I even bought more. It settled in around 25 after a little bit of profit taking. But you had told me something that a program got voted through the March after I joined, a month after I joined, where you made an equity opportunity available to the leaders. So when you talk about there's a big middle class of earnings in the comp plan, there is a huge carrot for the best of the best. And any top professional out there in network marketing watching this, or anybody that's made money in life, you know, and understands investing, you got to look at the numbers of Zinzino. I saw somebody, one of my teammates said that it was the performance of the stock in the last 3 years was like over 700%. And so first of all, one, you went public. Why? And number two, you're not even on the board of directors. You're not corporate. You and Hilda are in the field. And as a field leader for many companies that I've seen good and bad and the ugly, Larry and I said, man, he's willing to get paid from the same comp plan. How could that be? Why would they want to do that? Usually the owners say, go do this, but they don't do what we do. And to me, that's what separates you in Zinzino from the rest of the companies. I don't know any company that the owners believe enough in their plan that they're actually willing to work it just like the field. And you have done that. And that spoke to my heart, my mind, and the fact you made an equity opportunity, that you're stuck to your word and you put a lot of opportunity there. I'm indebted for you to do that, but it was a big part of the attraction for me in Zinzino. So can you speak to some of those points?
First of all, we grew up in the field. We love the field. I also love the challenge of being able to lead without authority, just lead with influence. So your ideas is so good that you don't need any authority to pull it through, because then you really do something that is amazing. So that's a challenge. Now, as an owner, of course, you have some authority, and you elect the board. So that's important to understand, that we elect the board and the board elects the CEO, and the CEO works with the field. And we work very tight together, both Hilda, me, and Doug, and the C-suite of the company. Why we took it public is because in my own studies on why do or how do you make great companies, it's just a simple fact that public companies outperform private companies over time. And that's because of the corporate governance in a public company that doesn't necessarily exist or is much weaker in a private company. So how is the money allocated on behalf of the investor instead of how is the money allocated on the behalf of a family? And if it's a network marketing company owned by a family, nothing wrong in that. But if the family then gets a lot of money, then maybe it isn't as important to allocate the money of the company to continue to grow, because it's just a cash cow that they can live from, and then the innovation stops, because instead of taking everything they earn and throw into innovation, they throw it into lifestyle, and then they have horses, and then they have islands, and then they have planes, and then they have all of those things.
And then they have nothing.
Well, that sometimes happens too. And then there is no innovation left, and the company stops growing. In the public arena, to get the investor's attention, you have to innovate. There is no one that wants to invest in a dead company. And that's just how it is. So you'll find companies out there that doesn't have innovations, and you can buy them cheaper in the public market than you can buy them privately. So a private company that is what we call a dead company, that is just delivering 10% profit, not growing, is paid better privately than it is paid publicly. But in the public market, if you have growth and you have innovation, you get 5 or 10 times the money for the company in the public market than you would for the same company in the private market. So this is the reasoning that we wanted to be public, is because we wanted to be pushed to develop. Not because we wanted to sell out, not that we look for the evaluation for any other reason than what we can do with that when it comes to investment and innovations. Of course, that gives us some benefits, huge benefits, I must admit. But it's because we are then held accountable right now from about 15,000 shareholders that are watching how do we allocate the money into investments, into growth, into acquisitions, into compensation plan, and into innovation more than anything else. And the innovation that we're doing in Zinzino, or through Zinzino, is maybe unfair to the inventors to say that it's Zinzino. So there is real people, inventors, that is doing the innovation, but we use the Zinzino vehicle to fund it and to scale it. It's at a very good level. Then the last part of it was that if you study tech companies especially, it does happen in other companies too, but especially in tech companies, a new tech startup says, well, we can't afford to do like this Facebook guy did, offer an AI engineer to come over with a paycheck of $1 billion. It's like that we can't afford to do that. And so we can't compete. So what they did instead was that all the startups said, well, no, if you perform, we're gonna give you shares. And when we go public, then you're going to cash in like the other rich people in the world. So that's been happening in the last 20 years or something. Right. So before we went public, we wanted to do that. And then when we went public, we said, well, in big public companies, most of the money the top level people make is not their payroll, even though that can be pretty hefty sometimes, but it's the increased value on their share options if it's a performing company. And right. Then we said, we'll do that for our C-suites, absolutely yes, but why don't we do that for all the top leaders as well in the field? And that's the program that we have had for 20 years. So we just did it in a new way. Just when you joined, we launched it into the actual comp plan, bragging about that we actually do this. So when you look at Zinzino as a company on the global scale, 350 million US, I think we will do this year. That's a mid-sized company. We're getting up there. It's not tiny anymore, but it's not a big company either. If you look at the commission payouts that happens to our top leaders, we're like pretty much average with other companies our size, but the big companies that does 5 billion in sales obviously pay 2 billion in commission. They pay more in commission than we do in turnover if we keep our level for a long time. But if you weigh Zinzino in net worth between the top leaders, I'd go head to head with any of the other companies out there, and I believe we would win.
Well, that's brilliant. You shared something with me, and I love talking business with you because you're a brilliant businessman. I always learn so much. But when I went through the zinzinotest.com site, and I suggest leaders do that, go down to learn more about the balance test. You see a map of the globe, and you can see how many tests were done in each section or each country. You can see what the first and last score. I then matched it up and made a chart with the populations, and because you actually shared the idea with me to do that. And the Baltics and the Scandinavian countries, about 8 markets, are if you're considering one test per one person, we know it's probably 2 tests per person average, but it was about 1% of those markets tested. Pretty soon Hungary and Czech are going to be there, I noticed. And in that example, I also noticed that Zinzino was the largest or best performing direct selling company in those markets. We were doing more sales than any other direct selling company, bigger than the multi-billion-dollar companies. So as an evaluation point for a professional person in network marketing like me, I said, given enough time, they're going to test 1% of the market. If in time, that's showing me sustainability of the product and customers are staying on the product. It also means that eventually Zinzino could actually become the largest direct selling company in the world. And of course, with the big vision of 100 million customers, we'd be far bigger than anybody. And then I looked at all the markets, and now I moved from Spain back to the United States to run with this team in the US, Canada, and actually just came back from New Zealand, Australia, and I know got a lot of leads going on from Malaysia and China and the Philippines right now. But the global opportunity is enormous, Orion. And you led me to understand that. And as much as I'm urgently pushing, get going now, don't miss the timing. We're going to still have phenomenal timing for people for years to come. So with that all said, what about the market here in the US? Where do you see us now? Where are we going? Why should we run with this?
So predictions before anything has happened is really hard. But when data grows and you get more and more data point, it becomes really easy. And when it has happened and people see the graph, they go, why didn't I join that? Why didn't I do that? You know, that's how the world changes. So when I got the first iPhone in my hand, I was already in telecoms business for a while then. I got it and I hated it. And I said, this is complicated. this is really difficult. This is awful. On day 2, I ran a phone company. I didn't pay for the phone. So if I just threw it away, it wouldn't matter. I could just give it to somebody else. I didn't have any like money attachment to that. I purchased a phone, you know. So at that point, I was like, how are you going to just throw this away? Then on day 3, so I didn't throw it away. I stayed one more day. On day 3, I said, what have I been doing my whole life with a Nokia? This is a new universe. I can't believe it. This is radical. I should buy all the Apple shares that I could because this is going to revolutionize Apple completely. Check what Apple was worth in 2006 and watch what a dummy I was that said it. I said it out loud. I've got it on tapes even that I said it to audiences. I didn't buy any Apple shares. I just didn't act on my vision. I didn't act on the understanding. Now, it would have been very hard to make that prediction when I got my first Motorola phone, because back then, most people didn't have a phone. It would have nearly been impossible to make that prediction when the first car phones was rolled out in the 70s, and it was the firefighter and the policeman that have it. And no one even thought about making the prediction during the Second World War, when we developed a way to actually communicate like we do with the phones on a cellular level, not only by connecting through the wires. And when Graham Bell was put into an asylum institution, well, he made a prediction that this is the future of communication, and they immediately responded right away. Let's put that guy away. He should not be around. So when I saw this, I wasn't at the Graham Bell level because there had been some people doing this before me, but we were very early. We were like Second World War level, okay? So when we then say, hey, we're going to test 1 billion people, no one believes you because it sounds crazy, because why should we? No one did it before and no one thought about it. If it was so good, why isn't everyone already doing it? You know, they come with all those ludicrous arguments against you. When you've done 1% of Norway, you've done 1% of Denmark, 1% of Sweden, 1% of Finland, 1% of Estonia, Lithuania, Latvia, and then eventually Iceland, and you're about to do 1% in some more countries. It's very easy to predict that Norway, that is now actually at 1.5%, will get to 2%. And if Norway gets to 2%, Denmark will get 2%, Sweden will get to 2%. And when we get to 2%, it's actually even more reasonable to say that we will get to 3% than it was originally to go from 1 to 2. And when you have 3, it's more reasonable to have 4. And when you have 4, it's more reasonable that you will do 5 and at least saturate through the nutritional market, which is 20 to 25% of the population. Here is what's completely unreasonable, and that is to say that all of Europe will get tested, but no one in America would want to do it. That they want to just stay blindfolded, not know what's going on in their body, that they're just gonna, when their AI says, you should look at getting tested for your omegas, don't eat another capsule before you test yourself. The AI is screaming and shouting at you, and you say, no, I'm American, so I'm not gonna get tested. That's unreasonable when you have 8 countries that have already gotten to 1%, and the company has published the world's largest study about how the omega-6, omega-3, and omega-3 index looks around the world, and is about to publish the revolution that happens when people get on this product versus the supplements that have been in the past. So what's reasonable is to say, eventually there will catch on enough interest in the American market. So we'll get 1%, and when we get 1%, the logic is that we'll let 2. And when we have 2, it's even more logical to get 3, and then we get 4 and 5. And it won't only be Zinzino doing it. Will obviously be other companies that talk about the same thing. And that's why we are putting so much attention to actually having what's in the bottle being the best that exists on the planet, because then anybody that tests will eventually move up in price. It's just like you get your first car, a little rust doesn't matter. Get your second car, you don't want to have any rust. Get your third car, you want to have it quite new. Get into your 30s, you want to have a new car so that it's safe for your kids that are now in the back seat. So you move up in quality as you become a more used consumer to any kind of product that you're using. And eventually people would want a carbon-negative, phospholipid-filled, algae, plant-based products that just have a better quality than any other product in the world. So anybody that helps us in the future to get people tested just fills our funnel for future consumption. So when people say, are you afraid of somebody copying your test? No, I'm not. I'm praying that Apple would start sending out blood tests to all of their customers, or that they could innovate on the Apple Watch, that everyone wakes up one morning and they know that they're out of balance, and the heart on your Apple phone is blinking and say, hey, you got to get on an omega-3 supplement. Because even if they don't buy ours at first, when they learn about what we do, eventually they will move up in quality and they'll end up with Zinzino. And that's why those innovations are so important. So eventually what we do will be recognized as the most important intervention of health. Not the only. Sometimes people get confused with the most important being the only. And then we become these strange people that thinks that one thing is going to fix everything. It's not what I'm saying. It's just the most important intervention that leads to a ripple effect of a lot of different areas. So thank you for pricking people's fingers, arguing with them if they need to take a test or not, calling them up after 2 months, making sure that they take their oil every day, taking the second test with them, helping us do our work, and becoming an owner in the company. If you are already, thank you very much. If you would like to be, thank you very much. Because all of these things gives us the ability to continue to expand. And we use all of these data that you're creating to actually forward the science, to actually get the interest of the people that are inventing new things that we want, because it can make what we give to you even better for your health and for your business. And that's a teamwork that is unique. So I just want to shout out and say thank you very much to every single one of you.
Well, much love to you and Hilda. Zinzino truthfully is a love story between the two of you. Many blessings to you and your family, and let's go make the world a better place. Thank you, Orion.